Happy Wealth Wednesday. So great to have you here, Rebecca. You've become a new fast friend, and I'm so excited about what you're passionate about and the impact you want to see in the world. So, very excited to talk about that here today. I'd love if you could kick us off by just explaining a little bit more about yourself and what you're up to on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. So I currently lead the growth team at Zerion, which is a decentralized finance aggregation platform, which is a mouthful of just saying we're an investing app for DeFi. We allow people to track their portfolio, to discover the entire market, to track their NFTs, so kind of like an all-in-one app for that. But I've been in the space for quite a while, since the last 5 years now. And I've also been really interested in crypto use cases for, not so obvious audiences. So I've done a lot of research around the topic of community currencies, making crypto really viable and in a local context, right? In a day-to-day context where people can spend it. And so that's something that has taken me to Kenya, it's taken me to Oakland, it's put me in contact with people who are building all sorts of amazing projects, trying to take this technology and apply it in what you might call a low infrastructure context. And alongside that, I am also just really interested in the narrative that is forming around money and how that's evolving. So like most people in Web3, I have the day job, but there's also like a million other things I do alongside that. And maybe we can get into some of those.
I can't wait. And usually the first question we ask, it's really equalizing. I love it so much, is what was the first ever investment you made? Do you remember what got you started?
My first investment was probably Bitcoin. And just because it's like, I don't think I was ever in a position to invest before that. So I learned about crypto when I was a freshman in college, and all my friends were talking about Coinbase, and I was earning, whatever minimum wage we were earning on the work studies. Like I didn't have employment or anything, but I was like, okay, this looks cool. And so I think that was my first investment. Yeah.
Do you remember how you heard about Bitcoin or how that even became part of the discussion?
Yeah. So, I mean, being a freshman in San Francisco in 2017, it was kind of difficult not to hear about it. And so, we were going to hackathons, and we mostly went for the free food. As these kids living in downtown SF, we'd be like, hey guys, there's something at 6 p.m. in the financial district, like, let's go. That's honestly how I got involved and heard about everything. So that's kind of like the beginning of the story. And I think I was just also in an environment where it's something my friends are talking about. It's like people were doing all of these events. And I was also in a position where it was like I didn't have a lot of risk and I was curious. And so, yeah, that's the beginning.
How and why did you get into this space? So how did you go from doing, the food tour hackathons into actually being into crypto and now actually working in the industry?
I mean, I want to say it's a combination of things. The obvious one is just like right time, right place, right? I can't downplay just being in SF and going to those hackathons. And when I was in my sophomore year, I did an internship with an exchange in Japan. So at the time they were called Coin, now they're called Liquid. So that was kind of like my first formal experience working in a crypto-based organization. But I also think that, looking at 2018 and everything that happened in the market at that time, that it was also a time of a lot of disillusionment, right? It's like, what am I really doing? Everyone's talking about democratizing finance and changing the world and blah, 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 and all the marketing buzzwords. That really got to me because I'm someone that, like, the work that I do really does need to feel meaningful. Otherwise, I feel completely sort of dissociated from it. And to be very honest, I was in that space for a long time until I found out about this organization called Grassroots Economics in Kenya. It was so refreshing to find a project that was operating at the time in rural and urban Kenya, basically enabling people to create their own currency on a blockchain and having them trade that on a day-to-day basis. So if you think of like the spectrum of kind of like for-profit private enterprises in the space to the completely on the other side, you have nonprofit, super community driven. That to me, it was just eye-opening to see that range was actually there and that these kinds of opportunities were available for me. So I completely pivoted. I went from doing like biz dev at one of the largest crypto exchanges in Southeast Asia to going and living in Kenya for a while in a village and just interviewing women on how this community currency has helped them, like the improvements that they want to make on monetary design, doing a lot of like the on the ground work where it would be if you wanted to onboard a new community, you couldn't just do an airdrop, right? Which is something that's so familiar to us. It's like you had to go to the elders and explain to them what you were doing and get their permission and get their buy-in. And that was just such a different process of how we work, but still within the same, like still using the same technology, principles are largely the same. And so I think, I say that that's kind of the reason why I stayed. I think it was really important that I got to see that there are other ways of doing this. And that's something that has stuck with me. So since then, I've done a lot of research with Grassroots Economics. I've tried to kind of keep that alongside whatever other work I'm doing. And that's something that I'm trying to continue now as well.
What role do you see yourself playing in the wealth space, and why is that important?
DeFi, Web3, crypto, whatever you want to call it, is at this inflection point where people realize what it's actually capable of. So it's like 3 years ago, a lot of the things we were talking about sort of felt very theoretical or abstract, or just prototypes. Whereas now, when you talk about things like even digital identity or proof of ownership, it's like the stuff is happening on a massive scale. And the people who are buying into it and using these tools and services are not just the crypto bro crowd, right? It's everyone. But something that's really been on my mind a lot. So bearing in mind that right now I work for an investing app, and a lot of my day-to-day work is thinking about the way that people interface with these tokens. We've entered a stage where anyone can create any kind of money, right? Even the concept of money, anything can be tokenized. Anything can have a quantifiable relational value to other things. People talk about the DeFi matrix, where it's like everything has a token price on it. In a world where everything is tokenized, and I'm not going to make any judgment on what that is like, it becomes increasingly important that we're able to find meaning in that. And I think just starting off with the financial use case, a really, really big gap in crypto right now is the sense of meaning in what we invest in. If you are a new time investor and you want to be savvy with your money, you want to diversify your portfolio, but you also care about certain non-negotiables, it is really difficult to find those kinds of investments, right? People talk about the climate impact of Bitcoin. People talk about like the lack of diversity in the space, for example. Now, when you translate that to actually making a financial decision, that's a big deal. You're putting your money into something and saying, I have faith, that this project is going to do well, or this is like a stamp of my approval. Unfortunately, the narrative that we've sort of sold and accepted is like, just invest in whatever's pumping. Like there are thousands of these investing opportunities or indexes or yield farming strategies, what have you, with very little consideration of the intention that is behind that. And I think that's also largely because we've been serving a very specific audience up until now. Now that that audience has opened up a little bit, you see more women coming into the space, right? You see more artists and creatives coming in from the NFT crowd saying, I want to be a part of this. That's something that I think we've been able to look past for a really long time. But I think you see the same trends in traditional finance around like ESG style products. I think that crypto is yet to see that done at scale and done in a way that can be standardized, made almost like a standard for how tokens also present themselves, right? So it's not just about the financial upside. We also care about what it is that you're building, the fundamentals behind that, and things like how representative of the people that work for you or that are building this product. So all of this is to say that I'm really interested in sort of the narrative shifting that we do by using financial products. With that, it's almost two things. And the first one I'm still exploring and still navigating is just the way that we work in the space and the way that that's changing, right? It's like something has happened over the last 2 years where people have suddenly realized like, oh, wait, I can get compensated for the things I'm really passionate about. There is this environment of collaboration, intense collaboration. And I think it comes from having the tools where we can actually implement things and see them change at scale, right? It's like you see people onboarding into crypto, you see people investing in NFTs or launching projects that perhaps 3 years ago, 4 years ago, just would have been inconceivable. And that is an incredibly empowering space to be in. And I say that I'm still navigating it because I'm still learning, what are what are the boundaries that I put on that? At the same time, I don't want to completely romanticize my time as if I can just be doing a million things at once. I'm still a human being. I don't exist in the metaverse. I also want to make sure that what I'm doing is equally balanced by taking care of myself and living in physical community as well. So that really excites me. And then I think the second, the finding meaning part, and I think this is tied to my own personal journey with money. Like, I got a financial coach for the first time last year, and I was really surprised to experience the same thing, where it was like the first questions that we were going through were not how much money do you want to make, or like what should you be investing in. Those first questions were, what do you value? Who are you? What do you want in life, right? And so trying to take that lens and translate that somehow into the investing experience in crypto, like, I think that's something that as a community of builders and thinkers and designers, we're also still figuring out, right? Because it's like, it's not just the coin that you invest in, it's where you're putting your energy. And so that excites me, because everyone who's involved in the space right now is having to ask themselves those questions, right? Which organizations do I work for? Which DAO do I join? Which NFT do I join? Why? And I just love that. And I like that I get to have these kinds of conversations from that.
With that, I'd love to hear, is there a person or a company that's really inspiring you right now, and why?
A VC that I follow and I'm a really, really big fan of is Harlem Capital. And so they primarily invest in Black and diverse founders. And I have seldom come across a company that really practices what it preaches, in the sense of their attention to relationship building in the ecosystem, right? They might be a VC, but they are everywhere, right? They are speaking to people. They are making the extra effort to connect with diverse founders who are building things in the space. I'm also just really excited about the portfolio that they're putting together. And so if anyone listening to this has like never heard of them before, I would definitely go and check them out and go and kind of look at their ethos and their approach to where they put their money. And it just echoes so much of the things that I've been thinking myself.
The last question I have is, what advice would you give to someone getting started, especially if now they are just starting to get started in this crazy world of crypto?
When we talk about getting into crypto, we kind of mean two things these days. There's like investing in crypto, just financial use case. And then there's like getting involved in terms of I'm joining projects, I'm part of communities. And I want to speak specifically to the latter group. So, if you do have the time, there are so many communities, projects going on where you can use that as the springboard or as the learning experience to get familiar with the space. I sometimes forget how differently we work, say, based in, compared to other industries. Like the idea that you can just get together with a bunch of people on Telegram or Discord and like do something with them. Getting really familiar and comfortable with that style of connecting and collaborating. I'd say find a community that you resonates with. Focus on one thing. And, whether it's like community work that you're doing, or you're just connecting with people in that space through Discord, Telegram, crypto, Twitter, Reddit, whatever the thing is, just be comfortable with sort of making the social aspect also a part of your life. Because I think that, for my friends who are trying to get into crypto, there's a sense of like, is there a textbook somewhere? Like, do I have to get a certificate, or like, and I laugh, but like people genuinely have these questions, and they're valid questions, because I think that up until now, and still even, the space has felt kind of exclusive, but it's like that's opening up because you have more of these touch points where people can get involved. So I'd really just say, like, find one thing that you want to focus on and go really, really deep into that, because you'll probably find that becomes an experiential learning process.
With that, I'm so excited about what you're up to, where you're going. How can we keep in touch? How can we follow you and all the cool stuff that's coming?
I think the easiest way to find me is probably on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Rebecca_Mqamolo, but I will definitely put that in the show notes. But you can find me there. You can also find me on my website, which is linked in my Twitter. I am generally available. My DMs are open, and I am I always want to meet people who either resonate with the things that I'm interested in. I think that there's just so much value in being open to new people, new ideas. So if anyone listening to this has them, like by all means, reach out to me, and I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for this interview, for the work you're doing, and for your openness. That's really special. We'll be following
Thank you.
along. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.